Welcome to Simply Sarah. I'm Sarah Stockham, our host for today, and I'm so excited that you are here for our time together for how we get to have this conversation with Nancy Marks, who came from the corporate world and accidentally found art as a way of expressing herself. And I fully believe that we are created in the image of the Creator. And part of what makes us so amazing and unique is that each of us share these incredible gifts of creativity. And what I love about her story is that she found this avenue later in life. For some of us, it really is a lifetime journey of learning who we are and who we are not only as leaders and entrepreneurs, but as people who are learning to fully express ourselves in the right way, in ways that people can fully understand. And so I just am so excited to bring you on, Nancy. Thank you so much for taking time out of your amazingly busy schedule. I know you have tons of things going on today, but thank you for being here in the studio.
Oh, Sarah, I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Nancy, I don't always do a great job of introducing people. So I would love for you to share your bio, share what you want to with our audience about who you are and your journey to where you are today.
Oh, my goodness. How much time do we have? Uh,
Yes.
so, uh, I was a child who loved to color and loved to draw, but there was nothing that compared to my sister and my dad. And so I had a tendency of saying, I have no artistic ability, and kind of went through my life that way. Instead, I found I was much more logical and organizational. And a number of different jobs, mostly in corporate. I spent really, so much of my life in a corporate environment. And those skills of logic and organization were terrific skills to have
Yes.
and got me a long way. And I got closer to retirement. And my dad was told something which had said to me so many times. And of course, I didn't really listen to him like I should have. But he had a professor that told him, if you learn nothing else from this class, learn you need to have hobbies. You
Wow.
need to take them through your entire life.
Mhm.
And so in the back of my mind, it was my organization, which isn't necessarily a hobby, but I do enjoy it, and photography, which, I have an eye for things, but not compared to some other photographers. Um, And so you're going to hear part of my story is learning mind shift in
Yes.
how I view myself and the self talk that I have done with myself. But later in life, I found, because of my mom, she's at an assisted living facility, and they offer a class in fused glass as one of the many classes they offer. And my mom fell in love with it. And she was having such a good time. She was this giddy little girl again. And so I wanted something else to do with mom. And so I went, and I will admit, a little bit grudgingly, because I'm not artistic, I'm not creative, was in my head. And I took the class and I fell in love with it. I found something I was really passionate about, and it released, oh, so much in me. So we will continue that part of the story together.
Yes, we absolutely will. I love that. So, part of your background in entrepreneurship is that you have been in IT. You have that part of that logical sequential for you has enabled you to be able to really move into the technology world, help your husband's business, your business, move forward with that. What were some of the companies that you guys worked with as you grew your IT company?
I was at Sony, well, it was Columbia Pictures IT department, and they were purchased by Sony. So it was Sony Pictures Entertainment
Yes.
IT department. And I was the director of administration, and that included almost all the operational paperwork side of things. And I saw workflow that wasn't as good as it could have been. And so things like that I worked on. Then I went to Toshiba, and because I'd worked a lot with the Toshiba laptops.
Yes.
And so I really understood those much more than I realized. And when I moved over, it made even more sense why that opportunity came in my path. I went to actually CompUSA, They had a
Mm.
corporate side of their business,
Mhm.
and I actually was teaching the sales folks what IT really is and how to sell to them.
Yes.
And created a great program, but it wasn't easy to adopt that across the country.
Right.
Then I went to a distributor of
Mm.
technology. So I've been the end user. I've been working with end users from a sales side. I worked with uh, resellers from the opposite side, and then I went to IBM, and I was
Mm.
involved with the Intel servers that they had at the time.
Yes.
And that's when I met my second husband, and he had an infrastructure technology company. So
Mm.
he was basically helping businesses, local government, and education with the infrastructure in the walls that connects everything together
Yes.
and has all the security. And so I went over there and operationally found a lot of places I could help the business. And he made me the chief operating officer, and I had the
Wow.
accounting. So I was helping run the back end of the business. And he finally said, you're doing all this great stuff for IBM. How come you're not doing it for me? So that's why I had switched to working for him. It was
Yes.
it was an odd thing to switch from big corporations to a small corporation. It
Yes.
was a bit of a shift for me as well.
Yes. Yes. However, while you were there working with your husband, there were companies that you also got to work with, people that you got to be involved with that also were still internationally known. So maybe it was a smaller corporation, but yet you still had uh, touch with huge corporations
Yes.
that were working.
IBM was one of them. That's kind of part of the reason I ended up meeting him. So it's been a fascinating journey of moving through these companies, and everything I learned in a company benefited my background and my knowledge in that new company that I went to. And it was like building blocks helping me. And I didn't really see that when I was first doing it. I didn't like look out for companies that would benefit from my knowledge, but somehow they crossed my paths just at the right times when I needed them,
Yes.
or the right time for me to be there.
Oh, I love that. And I love also how you are so able to see that all of your gifts were being upgraded every time that you move to a new company, and technology, right, continues to move forward. And so there isn't a place in the river of technology that you can stand still and put your stake in and say, nothing's ever going to change here, right? You have to be
Yes.
willing to keep moving with the river because it keeps moving as well. But I love that you are able to see that the gifts and talents that you had, you were able to capitalize on those. And that as you moved through companies, could see that you were continuing to take the gifts that you already had and move them in a different way with a different company. That's such a powerful piece of perspective that
Yes.
I so admire that you see that and understand that.
I didn't always see it. It's one of those things where you have those aha moments,
Mm.
and you suddenly like lean back and sort of go, "Wow." Because my vision when I was young is you go to one company and you stay there forever,
Right.
and you build up, within that one company. And that's really sort of an idea more of the past. It's not as
Mhm.
much of the current environment. And it definitely wasn't the right thing for me to really do. I learned so much by not being in the same company the whole time.
Yes. I really appreciate also you speaking so clearly to that because the way that corporations used to be is that you did go and you worked for a corporation for 30 years, 40 years and get the gold watch, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And in academia, there are also these pieces that we could do in academia that if you just stayed in one place, that eventually you'd come to the top and maybe be dean or, have some kind of position of leadership there. But there really is something that is very unique that happens inside of a person when they move from a school district to a school district, or from a company to a company, or corporation to corporation, or decide to no longer have one entrepreneurship open, but decide to let go of that, sell it, whatever, and open up something fresh and new, right? We
Exactly.
continue inside of ourselves to grow and to bring all the knowledge that we had from before into this new area. I know for me that I'm changing CRMs right now. And part of it is, me watching videos and talking to people who are using into my tech person, and in that process of learning. But part of it is also me, before I go to bed at night, to say, okay, this is what I'm going to work on tomorrow with it. Whatever I've already done and anything that's happened in the past that will help me tomorrow navigate this more easily, allow it to show up for me, either in my dreams or during the daytime, right? Just to
Right.
be able to carry those pieces forward and to be able to easily apply them. So, tell me a little bit more about fused glass. What is fused glass?
It's a fascinating thing because I wasn't the only one that didn't know anything about it. I have found many of my friends and family have not known about it either. Blown Glass, which most people have heard of, and that terrific show on Netflix of Blown Away, it is actually done in about a 2,000 degree oven that is in front of you, and you can't stop. You have to keep going. You must know this next step,
Yes,
next several steps in your
yes,
head to keep it all flowing because that glass is liquid. It is a thick molten, and you have to constantly, or otherwise, oops.
right.
Um, Not my style. Nothing wrong with it, just not my personality, not my style. And then there's also stained glass, which most
Right,
people think of the big church windows.
right.
And there's a misconception that everything has to be big in stained glass.
Mm,
So, no, it doesn't. Stained glass earrings and plates and dishes and um,
yes.
not so much dishes, sorry, plates and windows, that kind of thing.
Mm,
And it's made at room temperature, and then you do soldering. So,
yes.
it's a very precise cuts, a lot of grinding to make sure it all fits together beautifully.
Yes.
Then there's fused glass in between the two.
Mm,
So, very similar to stained glass at room temperature, a lot of the same tools are used for the
mm,
cutting and the breaking of the glass to be where you want it.
right.
But fused glass doesn't require to be quite as finely tuned in those cuts.
Mm,
Yes, you can absolutely go to that same level. But
mhm,
for those of us that actually like to embrace our imperfections, the kilns we then put the pieces into. So we're
mhm,
building pieces on top of each other, all at room temperature, very comfortable, usually a lot of laughter. We put it in a kiln, which is similar to a ceramic kiln, only the
right.
heating elements are in different places.
Ah,
And it heats up between 14 and 1500 degrees for the first firing.
okay.
And the glass will become somewhat softened and a bit molten, but not to the level of what blown glass is. And it's all done in a kiln. No one's touching that hot glass. Nobody has to worry about it. The kilns are programmed. And so they go up to a certain level, they sit, they make sure the glass all evenly heats
Mhm.
so that it's heated evenly throughout the whole
Yes.
piece before you move to the next temperature.
Uh-huh.
Again, that's all programmed. We run it at night. I program it and I leave.
Yes.
And I open the kiln the next day because
Mhm,
it's the schedules that I use, there are different schedules, but because I put a lot of pieces in my kilns and
mhm.
of different widths and heights and weights, I do a more slower process to ensure that everything is
Yes.
the same. So it's about an 18 to 24-hour
Mhm.
cycle for the most part. But when I open that kiln, it's like Christmas morning. All these beautiful colors, these
Yes.
pieces have fused together in
Mhm.
the kiln. And it's all down to room temperature again. And then
Right.
I can pick it up, clean it up with a little bit of soap and water, and
Yes.
the pieces glow. And the
Wow.
energy that is coming off this glass is
Yes.
phenomenal.
Yes.
And most of this glass is food safe. So we can make the bowls and we can make platters for serving. And there's something so special about bringing out a serving piece
Yes.
that either you made or was a gift from someone who
Yes.
made.
Yes.
And, it's like there's a story behind it,
Hmm.
and there's a story that's with it. And that's a lasting memory every time you look at that piece, that how it came together and how it came to you,
Yes.
uh, which just makes, again, this whole environment that I'm in so incredibly passionate for me and fun. It's so much fun when somebody comes in and says, "Oh my God, I gave a gift to my friend and she can't
Oh,
stop raving about it."
yes. So you talked about the first firing. Is there a possibility of a second firing then?
Yes, there is. So the second, and even potentially a third,
Mhm.
is when we're going to start to put shape into it. So it's a
Oh,
lower temperature, and
okay.
we use molds. They're either stainless steel or ceramic most of the
Mhm.
time, and the piece will go on top of a mold flat because
Yes.
that's how it was fired first, and
Right.
then it will slump into the mold. Or if we drape it over a mold,
Yes.
it
Yes.
can be shaped that way as well. So it is a much lower temperature, so it does not change the basic design the person has created, but
Right.
it gives it even more shape and dimension.
Mm. I love that. And you just answered my question. If the first firing of everything is flat, I've done ceramics and had my students do ceramics as well. And you're right about the placement of where the coils are in the kiln, and that just the excitement of opening it up, just to be able to see what's transpired in the heat. And I
Yes.
just think that there are so many correlations, could be correlations to our lives, Nancy, about how heat allows things to change, right?
Yes.
And heat can allow an egg to become very hard, but heat can also soften things like a potato. And so, in our own lives, are there things that we are trying to beef up and harden? And are there things that maybe we want to soften a bit? Characteristics, I'm thinking, perhaps.
Yeah.
But the heat does that. The life experiences can do that. But I love that that seeing the change is, as an artist, it is Christmas morning. I
And
love
we
it.
suggest our customers photograph their piece
Mm.
before they leave while it's
Yes.
still in its infancy stage.
Yes.
Because sometimes I've actually had people say to me, "This isn't what I made."
Right.
And I like pull out your picture,
Yes.
see all those pieces line up, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it changed." But it didn't change what they designed. It just
Right.
enhanced it.
Yes.
And it's so much fun to watch the people's faces
I love that.
as they get it. They get where my
Yes.
passion is. And yeah, it's a lot of fun to know I can make that excitement in someone else.
Oh,
That little
absolutely.
spark. Oh,
Yes. Yes. Nancy, if somebody was interested in finding out more about you and about what you are doing, how could they get information about you in the shop?
I recommend my website, glassartscollective.com. The gift shop is actually part of my website. I have a lot of frequently asked questions. I
Mm.
have videos on the website as well, and my YouTube channel is actually tied to my website. So it's kind of a central repository to all the other legs of the business, which makes it a lot of fun. Registering for classes. You need to be in the Los Angeles area because it's all physically on site for the classes.
Yes.
But there's so much more to see and learn. And
Mm.
we do ship throughout the United States right now from our gift shop. So there's
Love
a
that.
lot to see. And there's 12 different artists in the gift shop as well.
Oh, that is absolutely fantastic that you are allowing artists to come in and share your platform to get the news out there, but also to get their work out there. I think that's one of the things that's most difficult for artists, is to be seen and to be known, right? And
Absolutely.
so thank you so much, Nancy, for working with other artists and allowing that, encouraging that, supporting that, and making that happen. That's so beautiful. In your work with the arts, what are you finding happens when people begin to sit down? And you talked about laughter earlier. When they begin to sit down and begin thinking about what they want to put together, what do you notice changes in their own demeanor, in their faces, and how they are showing up throughout that process?
Well, a lot of them have the same mindset that I had. I
Mhm.
don't have a creative bone in my body.
Mhm.
And that's actually a mindset that changes for them pretty quickly as well. Uh,
Yes.
and it's funny because it is such a strong mindset. The things we tell ourselves
Mm.
about ourselves and the things we say to ourselves,
Yes.
we are the most critical of ourselves.
Yes.
And and I've learned how important it is to be kind to myself.
Mm.
What I say to myself and what then express to others changed dramatically.
Mm.
And so somebody comes in, and one of my favorite stories is a mom brought her daughter and her daughter's friend in, and the mom was going to sit at one of my other tables and just get work done. She had so much work to get done, and she was really concerned about her deadlines. And I said, look, you need to at least break one piece of glass, just one, just so you know what your daughter's talking about and what your daughter's getting excited about. And just experience it so you can share it with her later. And she came over a little begrudgingly, kind of reminded me of myself from my first class. And she actually, what we call it scoring, the glass first, and then using a breaking pliers to properly break it where we want. And she was instantly hooked. And she took the entire class. And she called me the next day to tell me how excited she was about the class, but more importantly, how quickly she got her job done when she got home. So, after having a chance to clear her mind
Yes.
by the art
Mhm.
and focus on something totally different,
Mhm.
she was able to go home and get the job done so much quicker. And she was relaxed. She was happy. And she said she couldn't believe what a difference it made in her life. And I hear similar types of stories
Mhm.
over and over again.
Mhm.
People have come in because you have to wait about a week to get the piece back because I want to make sure my kilns are full. And when they come in and they look at their piece, some of them are very emotional because they relaxed so much in the class and they actually see their finished piece to be so much more than they ever thought it would be. It
Yes.
was just such a gift they gave themselves.
Mm.
And to know I even had a little something to do with that is got to be the greatest gift you could give me.
Nancy, that is so powerful. I love that the mom came in and she was just going to do her thing, but that you had this just gentle invitation. Just come do one thing. Score the glass, take these priors, break it. Notice that you did this and how it feels in your hands because your daughter's going to be talking about this because of how it feels in her hands, the experience for her. What a transformative experience. I love that story.
It is one of my favorite stories, and she's come in many times since. And I will say, by the way, remember the story I told you guys about the mom who came in with her daughter and her friend? This is the mom, and this is
Yeah,
her daughter who's now many years older. And
right.
I still tell her story all the time, and the two of them just laugh because they remember it vividly too.
Yes, yes. I have a mentor in my life who has talked about the importance of understanding how intense work drains our energy and how it's so important for us to be able to not only block out time to do the intense work, but just as we breathe in and we breathe out, to give ourselves less intense things to do that we are calendaring them that way, right? So we're not just putting intense, intense, intense together, but that we are putting some pieces in there of the opportunity to relax a little bit or do things that are more enjoyable and not less, and things that are intense can also be enjoyable, but in terms of the energy part of it, right? And I
Absolutely.
love that she has found that for her own self. And so it's not uncommon at all when somebody has a whole bunch of stuff to do, if they go out and do something completely unrelated, even begrudgingly, and find that they have so much more energy and focus and joy in life as a result of doing that.
And Sarah, you probably have similar stories when you were doing the ceramics.
Mhm. Yes.
and some of the other things that you're doing, the experience of introducing someone to something that they're apprehensive about and not so sure about, and the
Yes.
warmth that you give all the
Mhm.
time with everything you do.
Yes. I
I mean,
still, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. I was going to say, I found in our conversations how enlightening it is that you and I have so much in common and
Yes.
we are so relatable. It is such a gift to meet people
Yes.
like you and have you in my life as well.
Mm. Thank you so much for that, Nancy. I was thinking about the place that I started with ceramics was always pinch pots. And people would say, why would you start there? And I would have cut the clay the night before and had it all ready in the bag, maybe even the Friday before, whenever, right? And put enough wet paper towels in there so that whenever we were going to work with it, that we were ready to go. And so that's where we would start. And there would be kids who would just take their finger and just to touch the clay, right? They just weren't sure that they wanted to really do anything with it because their hands might get dirty. And I'm like, yes, your hands will, but also know it's going to dry your hands out a little bit. So be aware of that. But we also have this beautiful, huge sink here, and we're going to be able to use that in the process. And it would take maybe 15 minutes for some kids to go, okay, I really can put a finger inside of this block and start to play, because the whole idea is that you're taking a shape that is not a bowl and that you are beginning to move it into whatever shape that you want that pot to be, right?
Right.
And then we would do that, and we would put them in the kiln and bring them back out, and then we would start the glazing process. And again, the hey, can I just put a whole bunch of colors on here with the glazes of this is not necessarily watercoloring, so you need to have your brush that came from this color of glaze needs to go back into that space. And so I leave spaces so they'd have to physically move from one place to the next. And sometimes still the brushes went with them. It was okay, but it helped them as second graders, right, to be able to go
Yes.
around. And the reactions that I've had over the years of the gifts that the kids would do, because we would do something for Thanksgiving, we would do leaves, and then for Christmas we had little just little bears. They were little, brought in cookie cutters, basically, do what
Yeah.
you want to. And then in the springtime, we would take a larger piece and we would fold it over, make it flat and fold it over. I'll put it, roll it into a lace. So it had some kind of a design with it, and
Ooh.
fold it and let those dry with paper and stuff inside. And then later on we would and they had two holes, and hang them up and put dried flowers in there. So through the year the kids got a chance to watch the progression, then from the very first time of not sure I want to touch this to, oh, we're doing clay. Mom, I can't leave for the doctor's appointment during school. We're doing clay today. You can reschedule that. And just the
Yes.
excitement of it, the beauty of it, and to watch that whole progression through the year was something that I still I treasure, that having experienced that, because then I also understand when we introduce adults to new things, sometimes the reaction is the same thing. I'll touch this, but I'm going to get my fingers dirty, and I'm not sure I really want to do that. But yet, if I get my fingers really into it and start really working on it, I might find something that is expressive and fun, and that I really enjoy doing.
And it's so much fun because as a passionate teacher,
Mhm.
our students feel that, and
Yes.
it makes a world of difference. It's really hard to be not engaged when someone's so passionate. You
Yes.
kind of you get that feeling, and you get that energy from the instructor, and it does make such a difference. I mean, I've had a few fused glass instructors that weren't as passionate about what
Mhm.
they were doing, and I felt different in the class as well.
Yes.
And I have people come here that have been with other teachers, and they're like, oh my gosh, your energy and your passion just comes through. And
Yes.
so it's, I am excited when I wake up in the morning, and I'm
Mhm.
sure you are too. When you're
Yes.
going to be teaching someone,
Yes.
it's like your day is brighter before you even walk into your studio.
Right.
And
Yes.
yeah, so I don't feel like I'm working.
Mhm.
I'm playing all day long.
Yes.
And my playing just happens to be a business. And
Yes.
it's one of those things when thinking about what you want to do next in life.
Mhm.
you don't necessarily have to be the owner of a studio or the owner of whatever it is you want to do, but find a place where you can be the
Mhm.
passion and you can have the energy and you can have the excitement. Um,
Yes.
I know that I talk a lot about with friends and with acquaintances and people are recommending people. Not everyone wants to get into glass, and
Right.
that's okay. It's
Right.
really find what you are passionate about, but art is
Yes.
not just painting or ceramics or glass. I mean, cooking is an art,
Mhm.
baking is an art, writing is an art,
Yes.
textiles, and oh my gosh, I mean, there's just so much. We don't have enough time to list all the different types of art.
Right.
But finding something that you can be passionate about, and it doesn't have to be a 4 hour time
Mhm.
frame. You
Right.
can do a lot of stuff in a small time and keep building on it. So
Yes.
it's it because I always hear people saying, I don't have the time. I don't have the time. I used to love sketching, or I used to love doing this, or XYZ, or, ABC, or maybe it's LQW.
Right.
It's like whatever it is, the way you want to do it. Oh gosh. And it's fun because people do find
Mhm.
that their relationships are changing as their mindset is changing with the
Yes.
yes, I can attitude.
Mhm.
And you know what? If the first thing you try isn't what you enjoy, that doesn't mean you're not artistic, creative. Those
Right.
two words get kind of interlocked a lot.
Mhm. They do.
And it doesn't mean you're not whatever. Have the attitude of, yes, I can.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, people chuckle at me. Okay, so they laugh at me on occasion too. But they go, you have this go for it attitude.
Mhm.
You might not have ever done this before, but you're not afraid of it. And I
Right.
said, well, the worst thing that happens is I don't like it.
Right.
What's so bad about that? I'm
Yes.
learning something else.
Yes.
I'm learning something else. Yay.
And I love how Thomas Edison talked about over 2,000 different ways that he knew that the light bulb wouldn't work. He hadn't found the right one yet. And I think that in our lives that we don't necessarily need to go through 2,000 ways of expressing ourselves, that we kind of go, well, maybe that works, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
And this whole idea of mixed media was something that I was introduced to formally in sixth grade. I remember the teacher, and I remember just sitting there absolutely blown away because in my mind everything had been, we took piano lessons as young children, and so it was all about music. And then if we were in the kitchen, it was all about being in the kitchen and learning there, right? And then
Right.
when we were sewing, it was all about sewing. But the idea of being able to take mixed media and put things together, that was just so life opening for me. Wow, you could really do that. And so I think that even today, especially after the shutdown, having that space of quiet for so many different people, more quiet than maybe what they were desiring. And in that space of listening differently, coming to a place of saying, I'm willing to try something new. I want to try something new. There is so much more to life. And I know that, but how do I stick my feet into that? You just try something new. Our daughter over the weekend was in a town with visiting friends, and they went line dancing, and she texted just to say, I'm so good at learning line dances. Well, she's mathematical, of course, it's a pattern, right?
Yes.
But for her to be able to experience that was just so much fun for her. And again, just trying new things, such a beautiful thing to be doing.
Yeah, my daughter's learned to try new foods. As a
Ooh.
child, she was animate. She wasn't going to.
Mhm.
But now her friends say, hey, try this. And she goes, okay. Because she has learned by trying new things, there will be something she likes and
Yes.
something she doesn't.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Yes. And it's really good to know the textures that you like more and
Yes.
the heat level, right? Because those are
Yes.
things that you can ask in at the restaurant. If you've never heard of the food before, never heard of the fruit before, but you can start asking those kinds of questions and get a little bit more information. Can be really helpful. So, Nancy, as you are enjoying, loving, creating and doing glass, and that you have the Glass Arts Collective, what do you see on the horizon for you over the next several years?
um, I've sort of dip my toe into it now. I really want to help be the voice for other artists. And I really want to help other people. I had the business background, and had more of a business background than an artistic background. So even when I opened this studio, I had no problem. I had already convinced my ego, I don't listen to you anymore. And I had friends come in and help me. I had no problem asking for help and accepting that some people can do better than I can. Um, and so I think it's important, as I'm growing and not being afraid to try things, I want to help other people have a voice as well. So when I first opened the studio, for example, my open studio members didn't have a place to sell their art, and so everybody told them to go to Etsy. Well, if you're not a business person and you don't really understand that, it's scary. But that's why I opened my gift shop up to them. And now I'm going to still keep my gift shop to my open studio members and my little community, which I've created. But
Yes.
podcasts and television shows,
Yes.
I want to help other artists be able to express themselves as well, and to share their excitement, their over things they overcome, very similar to what we're doing. And it's the gift that you have created for
Mm.
people to be able to share. I want to grow from this, from what you're teaching me.
Yes. Yes. I love that you are able to see that you came with this incredible business mind, experience, and background and moved into this area. And I love that you see that so many artists are so good at their trade, but aren't really quite sure how to move into the other space. And I agree with you, just saying to somebody, hey, there's a platform out there that you can sell on. If you don't know what the process is of selling and marketing and getting your name out there, that can be all in its own right a very standoffish place. And so I love that you have your heart open and that you are looking at how you can be helping other creatives to be able to move into spaces of great success by learning from you. I think that's such an incredible piece that you are opening up. What piece of advice would you give to somebody who um, has been experiencing some success in terms of sharing with other people what they're making, whether they are quilting or they are sewing or beading or whatever it happens to be, right? That they've shared with their friends and family, people are purchasing from them, maybe cash, maybe checks, maybe they've figured out some Venmo, maybe they're thinking about, adding in a credit card processing at some point. What advice would you give to somebody who's just in that place of, I enjoy doing this, I think I can take this further?
Try it. Um, it's really, any platform that you go to, the word marketing is probably the hardest part, is letting
Mm.
people know you're there. And so having friends and family who already recognize your talent,
Yes.
let them help spread the word. Do not be afraid to ask your friends and family who care so much about you to share what you're doing now.
Yes.
Go for it. Try it. And don't take the negativity that comes with nobody bought your stuff yet,
Right.
because there is so much out there on the internet, and it's not like the movie Field of Dreams, build it and they will come.
Right.
It does take a bit more than that, but try it. Talk to artists who are making it work.
Mhm.
Talk to shop owners. Maybe they'll let you put some of their of your stuff in their shop
Right.
and sell it there, so you can start to build a community. So
Yes.
there's not enough hours to do all of this on the
Right.
call
Right.
either, but try a lot of different things. Recognize, even
Mhm.
if the first one doesn't work,
Mhm.
keep trying.
Yes. I really think that there's so many children's books out there about, just keep moving forward, just keep doing. And yes, there's some adult ones as well, but it always seems more of a command when I look at those books
Yes.
rather than an invitation.
Yes.
And the children's books just seem to be more the invitation of, hey, that didn't work as well as you wanted it to, or the way that you thought it was going to, but it might work so much better as well. And I do think that having mentors, people in your life who are maybe even a different field completely, but you have a question that's in that they would have the answer for, to be willing to ask those questions. And sometimes I will say, I'm not really sure what the question is. This is my experience, and I don't know how to move forward in this particular place because I don't know what I don't know. And so I'm not really sure what the question is, because if I knew the question, I could probably more easily find the answer, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I mean, one of my favorite things that I used to tell my daughter is, when I was a kid, you would go to your neighbor's house to see if your friend could play. If they couldn't, you weren't offended. You just knew they couldn't play right then. And
Right.
you'd go to your next friend's house.
Yes.
Now, for some reason, society has felt like if somebody doesn't respond to you or doesn't do something in a timely manner, that they
Mhm.
don't like you anymore. And that there's this whole different I can't even say it.
Dichotomy.
Thank
Dichotomy.
you. That, that people are ignoring you now because we don't respond as fast.
Yeah.
Don't ever take it that way.
Mhm.
Sometimes, as I've told my daughter, adults forget things.
Mhm.
And sometimes we just do get busy with something else. Don't be afraid to ask again. And as I would tell my daughter, in a nice voice,
Ah,
not with the
yeah.
sarcasm or the anger or the or harshness that you
Yes.
hear so frequently from others.
Mhm.
Um, and I have to tell you, anyone who's ever asked me for help, if I could help, I will. And if
Yes.
I can't, I'll be honest and say I
Right.
can't. But
Right.
I might know somebody who might be able to help you.
Yes. 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 I think when you talked about the dichotomy, the switch there, for me, it's been a little bit about listening internally to myself and having the conversation of not asking somebody else to tell me that I'm worthwhile, but that
Yes.
knowing that what I'm bringing out into the world is unique and it is worthwhile. So,
Yes.
therefore, let me be courageous and persevere in order to find the people that see it at least a little bit of what I'm doing and believe in it at least a little bit, right? And
Yes.
from there, then do the upscaling, the growth from that point. But I do think that a lot of it has to do with I'm, I've apologized more than once on this show for this part of being a teacher, is that we give grades and that there are these standards that are these outside standards that, and I think that we do it in such a way, or it has been done in such a way, that people then look for external validation rather than saying, this is my best short story ever. And I chose to not put punctuation in there because I wanted the person to not be stopping as they are reading. I wanted it to flow all the way through. And yes, maybe it's not grammatically correct, but that's the desire that I was looking for when I was writing this. And I think that we have just so done such a job on people to say, this is this number or this grade. And so we do go out holding our hat in hand to say, hey, I have this idea. Would you take some time to look at it? And will it be good enough for you to actually look at, rather than saying, here I am, I have something. Maybe it's for you and maybe it's not. I'm selling hot chilies. Maybe you're allergic. It's okay. But who do you know, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And, people will go to me, well, how do I price my stuff? That's probably
Mm,
one of the biggest questions I get from people
definitely.
and that's probably the hardest thing to answer. But what I can recommend is you look at other sites that are selling similar things, look
Right.
at the quality,
Mhm.
and decide, is yours about the same quality? Is it about the same,
Right.
and price it somewhere in there. Now, in certain parts of the country,
Mhm.
there are people who sell things for more money. And part of
Yes.
that is because it's the communities that they're in.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so in some communities, you can get more. In some neighborhoods, let's take it down to that level. Um,
Yes. Yes.
so, and I mean, I've found that there's times where people will say to me, "Well, glass art isn't inexpensive." I mean, and I'll go, "Neither is playing golf."
True.
But there are people who want to play golf, and
Yes.
that's what they love. If this
Yes.
isn't for you, I'm not taking it personally.
Right.
And, especially if you haven't even tried it yet.
Hmm.
But glass isn't an inexpensive object, you know? So maybe if you don't have a lot of money, you don't start here, but you can still draw. You can still do all kinds of other art
Yes.
that you can do, and it doesn't even cost anything.
S-
Paper and pen, pencils.
Yes.
So
Ah,
start somewhere. Don't use excuses, as
mm,
I call them,
yes.
not trying something. You can have a variation. You don't have to do it exactly.
I love that.
And
Yes.
everyone has to start somewhere. You're not going to be a Picasso in whatever you do the first time you do
So true. So
it.
true. So, what advice would you give to somebody who has been working on a project for a while? They've gotten some good feedback, maybe they've earned some commissions with it, but they're feeling a little bit stuck. They're feeling like they have lost a little bit of that zing for what they're working on. What advice would you give them?
One of the things that I find, at least with glass art, and I believe it probably carries over into other art as well, is a lot of people try to do it on their own by themselves.
Mm.
And when you can, on occasion, get into an area where you are with other like minded artists, the energies that they have and just seeing them working, and I'm not saying copying people, I'm literally just saying their energy and their flow, it changes for you as well. And so I highly recommend. I do have artists who do a lot of their work at home, and then they come in for the camaraderie, for the community, the relationships, the laughter, um,
Yes.
exchanging recipes,
Yeah.
uh, talking about books they've been reading. There's just so many different things you can be talking about that just all of a sudden triggers. I mean, you can read a book and all of a sudden have new ideas. You can go outside and take a walk in the garden, in the forest, as they call it, but I call them trees.
Yes.
Um, and all of a sudden, you have a different energy coming from that environment. Sometimes that's all it takes. And
Yes.
give other things a chance.
Mhm.
Don't assume that if you step away and you spend your time looking in a art book or you go to the museum, just because you're not an artist doesn't mean you're not going to find a creative outlet that you're going to look at something and go, wow. And we've done that. It's like, okay, I can't do that in paint, but I could do something similar in art.
Yes. Yes. And Nancy, if you were to be able to sit down with anybody in your glass shop and have a conversation with them, anybody at all, they can be somebody who is alive now or not, somebody who speaks your language or not, somebody who does glass or not, who would that person be that you would love to have sit in your studio and have a conversation with? Who would it be and why?
Oh, that's an excellent question. And I've never thought about it. Um, I'm not really sure, but it would definitely be somebody involved in some type of art.
Mhm.
Sorry. I think, yes, someone who does art, a different type of art than I do,
Mhm.
and ask about what inspires them.
Mhm.
What inspiration did they start with? What makes them think? Sorry, my studio is very dry. My throat is really dry right now. Um, what makes them think about what they want to do?
Mhm.
What motivates them?
Mhm. I love that. I think that motivation is such a beautiful, beautiful piece, and that every day is different, right? And the cycles of the moon, it's a full moon, more babies are born, right? I mean, there's
Yes.
something taking place energetically. And so
Yeah.
just kind of coming into those spaces of listening differently and understanding, and maybe it's getting outside, maybe it's going, meeting up with somebody that you haven't seen for a while. And not all inspiration needs to be necessarily acted on. I think
Right.
it's important, though, to be listening to that fountain of inspiration for what works for you in different seasons. And there are seasons, there are times that we
Absolutely.
do need to be resting, that we do need to be turning down the volume, so to speak, in our own lives. And then other times where, we can put a whole bunch of pieces back to back and just be so fully present and enjoy all of those pieces as well. Nancy, as we are kind of winding up our time together, is there something that you would like to reiterate before we say thank you to our audience?
I think really the idea, everyone has to give gifts at some point.
Mhm.
And I really think checking out handmade gifts as being something that you give is so much more rewarding for everyone. And it really, supporting local artists. I always liked that idea and concept. Now I love that idea and concept because I go and I will buy glass art from someone else because it's beautiful. It's something I hadn't thought of. It's not that I want to make what they're doing. I actually just love it, and it's usually a gift for someone.
Yes. Oh, that's absolutely so beautiful. And I love the idea also, and you've said this several different times, we're not going to look at other people's things to be able to take their ideas and make them our own. We are looking at other people's ideas and things in order for us to see the beauty in what they've created. Perhaps they have used a different angle on things, literally or figuratively.
Yeah.
Maybe they have chosen a different way of using patterns and shapes or designs that gives us just pause and allows us to think through what we are doing, not in order to be self critical, but just in order to wonder if we could expand in some way. And then the next question always for me is this the right time to do that? Go ahead, friend.
It's kind of fun because I love to hear their story behind their art.
Yes.
Um, and in fact, I've been teasing my artists, not really teasing, telling that I'm going to start recording them with their choice of which piece they have made and what's the story behind it.
Yes.
Because I think that people will get to know them better as an artist and will be even more excited to come and see their art and to come
Yes.
work with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will just echo that. Having lived overseas, we would always be buying gifts to bring back to people here. And there were several artists that I would go intentionally, or they would also sometimes walk to the house and bring their wares there as well. And
Well,
so, looking for those specific artists. And the only way to find each other is to be out there, right?
yes,
And to start having those conversations and to find people that the artwork speaks to you on all the different levels of things. One of the things that I've been so excited that's been coming out of India has been the reusing of plastic and how they make them into bags and different things, right? And
yes,
so, being able to use whatever is around us that's in abundance, and what a beautiful thought and idea that is. And I love the idea also of it being handmade gifts, because somebody's hands have actually touched that item, and
yes,
so that's such a unique and beautiful signature that's on that as
yes.
well.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, this idea that things have to be perfect,
Right.
when it's manufactured in a production line that, as you say, don't even have people's hands on them,
Right.
it might look more perfect, but there's no real energy in that. There's
Yeah.
no beauty to the same level. There isn't that story behind it. I was number 1,253 off the production line.
Right.
Really,
Right.
that isn't quite the story that I want to hear about the gift you just gave me.
Right. Oh, that's so, so very true. Well, once again, for the audience, if you are interested in finding out more about Nancy Marks and what she's doing in the Los Angeles area, I encourage you to go to the Glass Arts Collective. Is that .com?
Yes.
Beautiful. Yes, go there and check out the work that she has. Go shopping there. I like to buy gifts ahead of time, so I'm not doing that last minute crunch. And she's shipping all across America. And you know what? It won't be too long, I don't think, before you decide to go international as well with what you were working on.
You're right.
So, Nancy, thank you so much for the gift of this time, this conversation, for you sharing your insights with us. We are so grateful.
Oh, Sarah, I love visiting with you and sharing our stories together.
Beautiful. Well, friends, next time that we are together, we will have someone new who will also be sharing their own journey inside of leadership, their own journey inside of entrepreneurship, their own journey, and how incredible it is that we get to hear, to listen, to grow from. And I'm so glad that you are part of this growing Simply Sarah family. Have an incredible rest of your day.